Oh, hello, my friends, and welcome to the basement sublet of horror. I'm your host, Gunther Dedmund, and I return with you again. And tonight we have another Horror Hound special. Yes, footage from the Horror Hound convention. And later on, we'll also have the Horror Host Hall of Fame induction ceremony, also from the Horror Hound weekend, part of the Gothic Gathering, where horror hosts were inducted into the Horror Host Hall of Fame. Ripley's, believe it or not, is going to have a Horror Host Hall of Fame. I'll get more into that later, but anyway, from what I understand, Chuck D. Clown, put together a roast for the Horror Host from California, Mr. Lobo. And we've captured all of the footage from the roast, and we'll bring it to you now. Here's the Horror Host roast of Mr. Lobo.
You got the clap.
I don't need those. You don't need those right now. Please, have a seat. Yes. You hold this for him because he's not going to. What? Huh?
I don't know who I'm introducing.
Welcome to the first annual Roast the Host. Well, we want to thank you very much for coming, and I want to thank Lobo for being our first victim. I sure hope the people of San Francisco aren't going to miss you too terribly much. Horror hosts have been struggling for years to keep this thing alive, and when you have someone who's done something as important as cinema insomnia for 10 years, you have cured my insomnia. I've slept every time I've watched one of your I'm just going to turn this over to you.
Down the stage! Mr. Lobo is a star among stars. Uniquely talented, a true thespian, the kindest, warmest person I've ever known. A loyal friend, a true comedic genius, is, in fact, a very successful actor. It's true. What that means is he'll be around to take your drink orders very shortly. And his acting fame is on the local level. For those that don't know, Mr. Lobo does a show, a horror show called Cinema Insomnia. Right? You can applaud for that. It is a show that is loved by so many, in fact, that he had to make money to keep it going. I don't really mind that though, I don't. I'm a charitable clown, it's true. I give to all sorts of charity cases, like this one here. Cinema Insomnia is actually a fantastic show. It truly is.
Yes.
If you've ever sat and watched it, you know that to be true. Obviously, nobody has sat and watched it, so you don't have to give the fake applause. It's all right. Cinema Insomnia, for me, can be compared to some of the cinematic masterpieces of the world. It's true. Things like Blade Runner, or A Clockwork Orange, 2001 Space Odyssey, right? And Cinema Insomnia. They're all the same, every one of them. I can't stay awake through a single one. See? Now, I think it's only fair, if I'm going to come up here and waste time with all of this, that we probably bring somebody else up here to do the same thing, because I'm sure that a lot of people in here want to take their crack at you as well. So, I'm thinking the illustrious Count Godwall. We bid him welcome and enter into this hollow
Mother
stage.
Stratford?
We're in the 21st century, where you read your cue cards off your phone. So here we are. This is a roast. This is a roast. And then it occurred to me. Words that my mother said to me. My mommy said to me, she pulled me away from her breast. It was tough. He put down to me and said, Gore, if you can't say something nice about someone, don't say anything at all. Okay. Next up.
Me? I guess I get to introduce myself? What can be said about Mr. Lobo that hasn't been written on bus station restroom walls throughout California already? Well, let me tell you. Mr. Lobo, when he first started his show 10 years ago, came to me and he said, "Please, sir, as a wizened old horror host, could you please give me some advice on what I should do on my television show?" I said, "Well, you know, do what you'd like to see on TV." In retrospect, not the best advice I ever gave. Should have told him to do something entertaining, may have been a good thing. He recently extorted $10,000 out of his viewers to keep his show on the air. Well done, sir. A new horror host what else have I got here? Let's see. Oh, Mr. Lobo recently started his own horror host magazine. Yes. All right, that's all I have. We love Mr. Lobo. All right, next up, to his own chagrin and embarrassment, we have the one, the only Carlos Borjas.
Do we have a video set up? Are we ready to go? You know, John Zachary, everybody, we're doing exactly. Oh, John Zachary. We were all the way to New York. Dr. Zachary asked him what he thinks to pass the test. I mean, this is Zachary. You know, he's like the guy. He's going to
He's the guy
crank up the volume
enough not to be here.
Shut up! Watch this. Watch this.
Are you ready?
It was a hell of a shot.
You like the books in Transylvania. They're just your kind. You feel at home among the monsters and the Frankensteins. 100 years of time with me, with somebody. You'll have me and me. Oh, come with me to Transylvania. Come, my dear, with me.
Oh, that's good. We're at the Horror House Convention. We're doing a roast. You know what a roast is?
Yes.
We're roasting a host. It's a host roast. And this guy here. That's the part.
Mr. Lobo, we're roasting him tonight.
Is he gonna release? He's on TV across the country, but we're roasting him tonight.
Oh, that's good.
We're at the Horror House Convention. We're doing a roast. You know what a roast is?
Yes.
We're roasting a host. It's a host roast. And this guy here. That's the part.
Mr. Lobo, we're roasting him tonight.
Is he gonna release? He's on TV across the country, but we're roasting him tonight. Well, give it to me and then here you go. This isn't the only copy in existence, actually. He's okay.
He went through the thrill of being fired.
You know we'll do it if we take this thing.
Now you're going to get it now.
Because
I like how Borjas on the screen with Zachary and still trying to get all the attention.
Look at that, man! Look at that!
The magic mustache.
Let's shock the shit out of him.
this guy's over here.
This guy's okay.
Are you gonna get it?
Mr. Lobo, everybody. John Jackson says,
Feel the city. Yes, he's being roasted by the oldest man on the planet, or almost, and the oldest man in horror hosting. That's for darn sure. Lobo!
Your Honor, the prosecution rests. Does the defense have anything it wishes to say?
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank Barlow for being as incomprehensible as ever. When he put that video on, I knew that it would just be like jump cuts and nothing that made sense.
Just like cinnamon insomnia.
And then when Barlow, he's half the time he doesn't even let Zachary have the screen by himself. And he's still here, pointing at himself. And pointing at himself with Zachary.
Yes!
Zachary is 145 years old.
93!
I think it's cruel to go in there and play games with the poor man like that. You know, he doesn't know what's going on. He thinks you're bringing him medicine, and you do this stuff.
That's how we got in there.
He doesn't know who I am. He just shouldn't know who I am. You know, I mean, I would love to be roasted by a panel of my peers, and I'm still waiting. I had a great time. I thought everything that everybody had to say was hilarious, and I certainly appreciated the completely incomprehensible video of Zachary.
From
the only horror host smart enough not to be here. Horror hosts. Oh, thanks. Yay!
Can we go now?
Oh, God, I went blank. This morning, if we can get together and sit down in the hotel room. We're like, we have no guitar. I know. I got to go film with Steve Terry here now. I mean, we're filming a big segment. Is he here? Yeah,
You're watching the Basement Sublet of Horror's Horror Hound Convention Special for this year, 2011, and we've got lots of footage anyway, so we'll just go right back to it now. And another event that took place as part of the Horrors Gathering, the Gothic Gathering, was a tribute to Zachary. If you remember last year, they did a tribute to the horror host Vampira. This year they did a tribute to the host Zachary, who was still alive. He's in his 90s, and while Zachary wasn't at the event, they did travel to his home in New York State and videotape a special greeting from Zachary. So here's part one of the Zachary tribute.
I was sitting there, and this gentleman got on stage, and I was just blown away by the way he hosted this. So I had to go back and say, who was this masked man? Who wasn't wearing a mask? And I find out that way back in '85, he's in this movie Cave Girl. And then you look through his resume, and it's like every great television show ever made, he's had a role in, or ER, a sex offender in Boston Legal.
Many shows ended life.
Yes. Lost, and most recently, Lead. I'm aghast. I'm just beside myself. So, ladies and gentlemen, to tell us a little about Zachary from his perspective, I want to introduce Dan Robo.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. What an honor, what an honor. How great is it to be here again and see my old friends, Big Puppet Head Guy, and Boney Jangler. Miss Monster, you gave me your number. I called like 3,000 times at some furniture store. That's so weird. I call every day. They're like, he's still not here, creep. Listen, I know the night is going on, and I know Jason was ready to go get Joe Pop Briggs, which would have been funny. We should all go to the bar and harass him out. But listen, it's simple. I'm blessed to be here. I'm a pretender to all this hard work that you all do. Dr. Shocker came about because I was entertained by Dr. Shock. Dr. Shock was from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I stole Dr. Shock's routine. And I feel bad about it, but he stole Zacherle's routine. And I think that's when you really know you made it. It wasn't until Will Jordan was doing Ed Sullivan that Ed Sullivan was famous. It wasn't until Rich Little did Richard Nixon. And everyone goes, oh, this is how he is. Which sounded a little like Empty Grave when Lobo was doing it. But Dr. Shocker was born of Dr. Shock. Dr. Shock was born of a gentleman who was the inspiration to us all, Zacherle, well, the inspiration many of us, Zacherle, from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It's hard to remember because we know him as Roland in New York, but of course he got his start in a humble town called Philadelphia. So, yeah, thanks, my brother's here. I know the evening has to move on, and I want to say that what I see here really, we could pay tribute to Zacherle. The truth is you all pay tribute to Zacherle. Every one of you gets up and you do what you do and you entertain the people you entertain, because that guy may have done it second, but he certainly did it with panache and with talent, and that's why we still want to see him today. So thank you, Gore, for including me, Jason. You guys have a wonderful night, and thank you, Miss Monster. I'll get that number again. Great. The Hooligans are here, great. Everybody count, thank you. It's an honor to talk to you. Thank you.
Down to the camera. What's he doing? If this was Bigfoot.
The number she gave me was for a video shop that specialized in porn. I didn't understand. No, we all like to have a good time. Next up. I think that worked. Next up, let us turn to the big screen. We have a very special tribute coming to us on the big screen from, well, what can you say about Ormsby except it's Ormsby.
Round in Transylvania, cobwebs in your hair. Oh, hello, Harhound. Hello, all you unconventional conventionists. Ormsby here from cinema. Insane. Located on the haunted lighthouse of Mastic. I wish I could be with you in Indianapolis. Tonight, you're honoring my personal hero, Zacherle, the cool ghoul. My mother, she was an original monster kid, and she used to watch Zacherle back in the 1950s when we aired here in New York. Growing up, she'd tell me tales of Zacherle, about his undead wife, my dear, who was never seen, about how he jumped in and out of movies, and of course, his giant amoeba. I think Mother had a crush on him. Finally, in 1982, I got to see Zacherle in action. He hosted Channel 9's Gorilla at Large in 3D. Since then, I've lived my life by Zacherle's motto, a wicked thought will pull you through. If Vampira is the mother of all our hosts, then Zacherle is our father. And we are all his illegitimate children. Tonight, we salute Zachary, the cool ghoul. And as I leave you, instead of saying my usual, stay insane, let me say instead, good night, whatever you are.
How do you top that? Oh, you've got to have more craziness than that to top that. So I'm going to introduce the next bit of craziness. There is one person who wanted to be here but couldn't. Probably one too. Nigel wanted to be here, but Jason made my day and made his day too, and that is Halloween Jack.
Yeah.
Jack has been Creature Feature, the weekly web program, for 12 of the 13 years we've been on the internet. The guy is just incredible. He keeps coming up with all these really weird horror factoids, and now he's doing interviews with horror hosts. He may be calling on you. Timing is everything. The late entrance always works. Yo! I feel like my illegitimate spawn is just right. Carlos Barloff to give us his take on whatever you were drinking.
Actually, Zachary, the cool thing about Zachary is he's the guy back in the 50s in the 60s who blended the rock and roll thing in with the horror stuff. You know, he hosted the Disco Teen. You know, a lot of horror hosted their afternoon dance shows in the 60s already, doing their thing. And he actually, on American Bandstand is where he got his start doing that with Dick Clark. Dick Clark's actually the guy who coined the phrase "the cool ghoul" for Zachary, and it's pretty cool. Watching some of those old shows, they're on YouTube. Yeah, Zachary, what a great guy. He was hoping to be here, and he said to tell everybody, "Thank you."
Yeah, exactly. So let me the stories about Zachary. But yeah, he's putting the rock and roll, the bubble gum, and the monster movies, and all that stuff together. It's just, and it's all rolled up into one big ball now, which is great, and we're all stuck on it, and there's no way out. So, yeah. One host for life, everybody. No way out. Got it back. Okay. Thank you, Carlos.
Someone please roast him now.
Turn about his No. But we do have someone else who has something very important to say, and he promises he won't break into tears again. Mr. Lobo.
Zachary is one of the few horror hosts who is recognized even by people who don't know they're recognizing him, I think there's an old episode of the Flintstones where there's a character that's almost dead on imitating Zachary. There's a lot of, like you're saying, Dr. Shock and those characters. I mean, that is the true test of something where they literally become a representative of, an icon, of course, no other way to say it. Zachary, of course, came into a lot of people's homes through novelty records. A lot of people never saw his show, but they heard his comedy albums as Ormsby talked about those comedy albums. And so a lot of people didn't really ever see, unless they're in the New York area, didn't see his show. But people internationally, like in the film American Scary, Neil Gaiman, that was the only horror host he was really aware of was Zachary because of the comedy albums, and he did do the like Borloff said, the bubblegum and the dance shows, and that's part of it too. So it's definitely beyond just showing movies. He was this character because when you watch it and you try to break it down, it's like, oh, why is this guy such a genius? And you watch it, and he's like laughing and it's half sentences and nothing's making it's just burns a pickle in an electric chair and wanders around. And you're like, wow, this should totally
not make any sense whatsoever. But it is just glorious because it's you and him in your playtime together in his dungeon. And you know, he's different. You know, I mean, there were a lot of I'm sorry I wasn't here last year for Vampira. You know, Vampira affected a lot of people emotionally because she was an icon. And Zachary affects horror hosts emotionally, not just because he's an icon, because Vampira had her time as a horror host, and that time ended for her. Zachary was a horror host forever. He is always with us. He never left us. He's one of us, you know, and that's very different than a person who works at a television station and does a job for a period of time and kind of puts it in their past or maybe thinks they're a little bit above it. And I'm not saying that that's what Vampira thought. I'm just saying that that's one category. Zachary was on the other end of that category, you know. He enjoyed the work. He enjoyed the character. He kept the character alive outside of the boundaries of whether he had a TV show or not. So that, I think, makes him very, very special because he loves us as much as we love him. Back to Frank Gore. Thank you.
You know, when we went to visit him, and we will get to that just a second. We'll get to visit. His set is actually, parts of his set are actually set up in the basement of a friend of his, and we went to shoot this there. And watching him walk into the set, it was like magic. And he likes toys. He's got his spark machine. You saw it when he did the logo. His Jacob's ladder, 30,000 volts. And in case you didn't notice it, at the very end, his finger got in the spark. That's when he jumped. I went, didn't kill him. And what's so cool is he's still with us. And he is going to enjoy this so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to call upon our good friend Halloween Jack to introduce Zach.
I hope you're having a wonderful time at the Horror Hound weekend, and I really wish I could be there with you. It really breaks my heart not to be. But right at this moment, I wouldn't give up my spot for any single one of you, or for anybody on the face of this earth. You see, I have the extreme honor of talking to you about the man, the legendary horror host that we are here to pay tribute to, John Zachary. Now, when I was a wee little ghoul growing up in New Jersey, Zachary came into my life when I first saw him on WPIX in New York hosting Hercules cartoons, and then later on, Chiller Theater. And he mesmerized me, influenced me so much that I couldn't resist the call of becoming a horror host. And if it wasn't for him, well, I wouldn't be what I am. So, boils and ghouls, ladies and gentlemen, horror hosts of all ages, I give to you, Zachary.
Well, it's a great privilege to be here. Well, I'm not there, but I'm here, if you understand what I'm saying. I reached a point in life when I don't move around much. I'd rather be here than there, and you're there, and I'm in here. Well, you figured it all out. And he's quite right what he said about all these old horror movies. And it's a great pleasure to be here with all you people who are here to meet all the hundreds of people who have been on television introducing late night movies, you know, the old black and whites. They were the best kind, weren't they? Oh, well. Great times we had in the old days. And I want to mention the fact that there were people down in Florida, I recall, I forget this guy's name, went for many years, a team of people the people in Florida, by the way, they call themselves he put himself empty graves. And after a while, when he went through all the horror movies, he changed the name to Empty Space. Empty, you know, well, there you go. I don't know. But he and his troupe lasted a long time. And there were people all over the country in those days when the films were first released for TV, the black and whites from the 30s, and Universal Pictures, you know, Frankenstein and Dracula, and The Son of Frankenstein, Invisible Man, all those wonderful old black and white films. And suddenly I found myself doing down in Philadelphia, that's in Pennsylvania, and it's still there. I don't know why. And in fact, I went back there and got a big award a few months ago for all the years I put in on TV and later on radio, mostly in New York City, which is another story entirely. You don't know who you're going to meet with the subway in New York. It's a pretty scary situation. But we'll get that later. But anyway, I understand that Vampira was not here. She's passed away some time ago. And she began it all even before the movies were released. The Universal films out there in Hollywood. She used to ride around in an open air car, you know, all dressed up as herself. And she went on for years and years. I never met her. And there's a good chance I'll meet her later on, you know, on the other side. I'm sure she's there waiting. You can't laugh about it because I only got a few more years to go. In fact, it could happen right now when I'm sitting here. I can go. And it's a pleasure to be here and speak to all of you people out there in the audience who come to meet your favorites from all over the world. I wish I could remember. I forget some of the names of these people who've been doing these shows, and they still send me copies of videos that they make, and they're showing on TV in Tennessee or somewhere else, you know. I think back in Philadelphia, there was a guy in Philadelphia. What was his name? When I left there, he took over, and he lasted for quite a few years on a little UHF station. Back in those days, there was no tape, you know. It was all live, and it was the best kind of thing for us, people acting on TV, to have a live show, because anything would happen, some big mistake would happen, and you just had to keep going and keep going. And it made it all much more exciting. No tape in those days. Didn't get into tape until I moved to New York City, and all the horror hosts who are here, they had the same experience I'm saying. I'm sure they started way back in the late 50s when the films were released all over the TV. So, Gorgas Borloff is in charge here, I think. And I've got things written down here because I can't remember everything. I remember where my bed is. I'm in New Jersey right now. It's a Spermani Mansion in the basement where all these wonderful things here that he's collected, and some of the things I used on TV, like this thing, and this was sent to me by a wonderful lady. We got great things sent in by all you people who are now fans of all the TV hosts who are still alive and thriving. Well, I want to thank you all for coming, and I hope you have a happy time. I'm really sorry I just can't be there, but I wouldn't even come out there just for the Indianapolis. What a name. When I was a kid, I always heard about that because of the big bicycle, because of the big racing extravaganza going on here every day. How does that happen? I don't know. Is that before he buy some big trip or something like that? Everybody comes and gets in that big stadium and watches guys go around, especially in the old days when they had those little strange little fast cars, you know. The driver was very exposed. Now the driver is covered with all kinds of security things that they won't get killed. You know. And more fun, right? I'm actually after another they have. And I wish them all good luck. They really put their lives on the line. Well. I'm going to sign off here, and I'm sorry I'm not there to meet you all in person. I haven't had a lot of you because of the conventions we have in New York called chiller conventions, twice a year. And you show up there, fewer and fewer people are showing up. But remember, way back in 1960, that's a long time ago. Well. It's fun to see you at the conventions, but I don't really travel much. And I appreciate the fact you've all gathered here in Indiana and Indianapolis. Are you ready? Ladies and gentlemen, the Queen of Berkeley, let's stand there for a round of applause.
And again, I give you all a big round of applause and also big thanks to Jason for putting this together. And also for picking up his kilt.
I'm getting tired of all you lifting it up. Anyway, all right, on to other things. We've got costume parties, we've got jam sessions, we got bands, we got music, we got booze, we got guitars. Go have fun. I love all you guys. See you later.
And now we return to the basement sublet of horror. And now we go off to the Gothic Gatherings Horror Host Hall of Fame induction ceremony, where they inducted 13 hosts into the Hall of Fame. I'm going to try and cover them all for you, but we may not have time. But I'm going to show you highlights of the Horror Host Hall of Fame induction ceremony. There's many horror hosts who present, and it's a really interesting thing. And Ripley's is eventually going to open a Horror Host Hall of Fame in one of their museums. And they've gathered items from many horror hosts. And by the way, they're going to have a Horror Host Hall of Fame website. And on that site, they said they're going to have an online voting form where you can vote for your favorite horror host and maybe get him inducted into the Horror Host Hall of Fame. Anyway, let's go off now to the Horror Host induction ceremony.
Folks, thank you all for coming out for this very, very special event. Always want to do that. This last year has seen a lot of exciting things happen within horror hostdom. Several folks have gotten back on the air. We're very excited to be working with Ivana Cadaver and her getting that back out there. She's here. Is Ivana in the house? No, she's probably out being interviewed. Anyway, but one of the things that's happened this year that's been very exciting is working with Corpse S. Chris. I just saw him stick his head in here. There he is, Corpse S. Chris. Everybody. We rehearsed that entrance. Thank you. Welcome, Chris. Good job. Work with Corpse S. Chris. Work with George Chastain from Igor's Chambers of Horror Hosts. Yes. Yes. And we're working with the people from Horror Hound Magazine. Yes, please. Horror Hound has been very gracious to us in allowing us to do our crazy bits all together. And also, excitingly enough, working with the folks from Ripley's Believe It or Not. Now, believe it or not,
I don't believe it.
It's exciting to announce the first official Horror Host Hall of Fame. The time was long overdue, but has now come. The museum will be happening, a physical place for people to come and see pieces of our past, pieces of a very important part of American pop culture. Something that is distinctly American, though it has traveled and gone to other countries. This is one of the few things that belongs to us.
Yeah.
Yes. So, thank all of you for keeping this alive. Now, I do want to say there have been other people who have been involved in helping us develop this. The good folks at Dark Rider Studios have helped us get the Gothic website up and going. Gothic meaning the gathering of television horror hosts, internet, and cinema. Going to be looking for other Gothic events coming throughout the country. We're going to give those of you who traveled and dedicated yourselves to coming to Indianapolis, and we appreciate that. We're going to start bringing Gothic events to you, where you are. This is really growing. It's getting very exciting. I do know for a fact that there are some horror hosts that are right now negotiating to get themselves back on the air where they belong. Saturday night, Friday night, midnight.
Hell yeah!
Exactly. Yes. And I'm not going to stop doing what I do until you guys get to do what you do fully. So, all right. Now, why are we doing this? There's a big reason why we're doing this. Because horror hosts deserve this. There have been some amazing things that horror hosts have done.
I don't deserve it.
Well, that's why you're not getting inducted. Horror hosts have done a lot of charity work. I could go on for hours and hours about Dr. Creep and his folks and the work that they have done in the Dayton area. I can spend many a yarn about being a child and growing up and the excitement I got to see Sammy Terry at different events. And like Son of Ghoul, 25 years. 25 years. Right here. So without further ado, I do want to get this started. These awards, there's actually an order to these, so we're not just randomly bringing these folks up here. So the first induction is actually going to get that number, inductee number 1, okay? And I think the first two probably are going to be kind of no-brainers, but nonetheless, I do want to begin with Ms. Monster.
Sorry. Spiking the levels.
I just wanted to say a special thank you to Jason as he falls over the chair there. Thank you for doing all of this. Honestly, it's amazing to have a place to come and to be welcomed and to get to congregate all together, and this is largely, if not all, because of you. So, thank you. So the first inductee, she was I guess I wrote a little something here. The first mythological creature of the atomic age. This shocking character inspired generations worldwide to seek out horror, to find the sultry and the truth in terror. Her iconic Gothic imagery, served up with that sardonic sass and that jaw-dropping hourglass waistline that we all know and love, enticed the world over, even though her show was only visible in the Los Angeles area. The first, the Alpha, the Omega. This creation has been the backbone for our horror hosting industry. None of this would exist without her. This hall is hers, our shows are hers, a bit of this dark vixen is in each of us here today. She created her own mythology. She distilled decades of her fears and lusts into something new that resonated with millions. That her iconography is today still so resonant and virtually unchanged is a testament to her vision. And it is with this lasting archetype of sex, death, and wit from which every host from her day forward has been inspired. It is with dreadful excitement and truly fearful honor that I present our first inductee, Miss Myla Nurmi's very own Vampira.
Two things that she models this so well. These awards that you're seeing are actually, these are temporary for two reasons. Number one, we're working with Ripley's to develop the actual award that we'll be giving at future events. And number two, the actual logo. This is a temporary logo that we're using for now. The actual logo is going to be voted on by all of you. I'm going to talk about that more later, but all of you are going to have a chance to submit your ideas for the logo, and then we're all going to vote. But I'll talk about that in a minute. So, and also know that any awards that are being awarded posthumously, and there's no one here to accept, then the awards will be housed reverently and forever at the Horror Host Hall of Fame. Carlos, would you join me on stage, my fine good man?
Jason, this guy, everybody. Jason, this guy, everybody. Jason, you can make all this stuff happen. Concentrate, close your eyes. We're going back. We're going way back to 56 or 57 exactly. First hit the television. You know who I'm talking about. He's got the plaque right here. John Zapoli is going into the Horror Host Hall of Shame. I mean, fame. Yeah. So it's going to be at a truck stop in Bismarck. You know, there's a shop there next to it. But yeah, we just went up and saw Zachary 2-3 weeks ago. Count Gordon and I, and Hatchet Jack. He's going to kill me. Halloween Jack. We went up to see Zachary, and we picked him up at his apartment, and he was standing out on the corner just like saying, and had his mortician's jacket on, and just happy as a kid, you know, to go to his set with his chair and his little electronic machines and stuff. It's pretty crazy. But he's still got it, still sharp as a tack. You know, we're talking to him there and just making sure, like, how old are you, man? He's 92 and a half is what it is. 92 and a half, and he's still doing it. We got some super secret video going on somewhere in the house later on. But yeah, Zachary said he knew of Vampire Reports back in the day. Never saw her stuff back in the day because, you know, there was no way to network that stuff. But he was telling us some stories about how he admired how she'd ride around in the car and people would come running up to her and stuff. So he said that when he did it, they'd all run away and scream at him. It's like Herman Munster. You show them in the mirror and it goes. So this was great honor. Oh, and also, yeah, it was called Roland. In the beginning it was Roland. Roland. Zachary, Horror Host Hall of Fame. Is hereby inducted into the Horror Host Hall of Fame. Thank you. And you didn't catch that. This award is actually going to stay in possession of Carlos for a short time until it is delivered to Zachary himself in New York. We'll be filming him receiving his award, and we'll be posting that on the Gothic website. So everyone will get a chance to see Zachary receiving his induction. Mr. Jangler, sir.
You like that? Oh, Jangler, that's right. Hey, you know what? We got some parallels here. This induction that I'm doing, because we're from Chicagoland, Nocturne and I, and the person that I'm inducting, 1957, ABC Chicago affiliate, WBKB, Channel 7, hired a young guy by the name of Terry Bennett, a very talented person, and conveniently enough, and coincidentally enough, he worked with his wife, Joy, who was known on this program as Deer. You never saw Deer's face. Deer was really hot. You never saw her face until the last show. I'm talking, of course, about the nearsighted madman. I'm talking about Marvin Terry Bennett going into the horror. Thank you very much, Jason. Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right, this next one, I'm personally very excited about. There's a reason why your fourth induction, well, I'm just going to stop talking.
Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to induct Sammy Terry into the Horror Host Hall of Fame.
All right! Yeah!
12 films turned into a 42-year career. And who of us here that grew up in Indiana didn't faithfully at 12 on Friday nights settle in front of the TV to watch great monster war films and truly be scared by Sammy himself?
You know, we were all a little sad in the mid-90s when Sammy was canceled, and yet the character is now revived once again to keep the memories and the legacy alive for generations to come. For this is why we all as horror hosts do what we do, to celebrate the movies and our beloved horror hosts of the past.
You have done so much for us in Indiana. We would hope to repay and honor you with what we do. And in saying so, we wish to bring to the stage a ghoul like no other. The reason we all gathered in this magical place tonight to thank one of the men that shaped our lives forever.
Friends, horror hosts, conventioneers, and children of all ages, please give a shriek of delight for Indiana's own, one of Horror Hound Weekend's guests of honor and inductees, the coolest ghoul in the world, Sammy Terry.
Thank you all so much for your warm reception. You know, many years ago in 1962, when Sammy Terry was first developed, it was a 13-week contract to do some schlock furniture sales guys bits when the original Shock movie package came out. That turned out to be a 40-year career for my father. Growing up in the household with Sammy Terry was an event of a lifetime. Of course, for many years, I didn't know any different. It was Dad. And all the people that would come around and would ask questions and would admire. I had no clue what in the world they were talking about. But then early on, when I was 11, he asked me to start doing the stage shows with him. And we traveled through all the small towns in Indiana that had the original vaudeville theaters that have now turned into the cinemas, with people that don't necessarily get all of the exciting acts of the big cities. When Sammy Terry would come into town, people would line up for miles on the streets to see him. I started to gain an appreciation of what it meant to people, to have something that they can believe in, that they can be raised with in such a way that it's not whatever perils of life they may be experiencing. They get to escape that and live somewhere where they've never been. Sammy Terry's dungeon was that place for many. I've had so many people come up, shaking my hand and thanking me, saying, you know, my life wasn't all great growing up, but there was a person that was consistent in my life each and every week. On Friday nights at 11 o'clock, Mom and Dad were gone, I'm over at Grandma's, she'd let me sit up and watch. He was as big a part of my life as my parents or anybody else in it was, and thank you. It's always such a humbling experience to hear that. This last October, my father asked me to continue on the Sammy Terry tradition, and I was so honored when he did, because I really understood what a horror host, as unlikely as it sounds, can mean to so many people. So I encourage all of you to continue doing what you do with professionalism, with integrity, and the type of responsible shows that builds a 40-year career for yourself. I hope to take the heritage of the last 40 years and turn it into the future of the next 40, and I invite all of you to come along with me. So on behalf of my father and myself, thank you, and I wish you many pleasant nightmares.
We lost our order just a little bit. Butch, would you mind joining us on stage, sir?
Hey kids, Butch R. Cleaver from the Meat Cleaver Theater in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I am honored today to induct one of our own from Cincinnati, named Dick Von Hain. You probably know him better as the Cool Ghoul. The Cool Ghoul was started back in 1961 when he was a radio personality on Bob Smith's show The Monster Mash. Whatever the heck that was. I wasn't born then, ironically, but I hear it was pretty cool. Anyway, let's flash forward to 1969. He ends up getting a televised show called Scream-In, based on the old Laugh-In show, and he finally gets to take his character to the screen. Now, this was on WXIX, which is now a big deal, but it was a little fledgling channel back then. The show only ran for 3.5 years, but his impact lasted for 30-some years afterwards. He showed up at charity events. He showed up with sports figures. He was everywhere and anywhere, all around last season, of course. And he was a big inspiration to me and a big inspiration to a lot of people in our town. Very big into charity work. Now, unfortunately, we lost him in 2004. And not only did I lose an inspiration, but I lost a friend. So, it is with great honor. Sorry, I'm all choked up. It's a great honor to induct Dick Von Hain into the Horror Host Hall of Fame, and this will be housed, of course, at Ripley's Horror Host Hall of Fame. So thank you.
So I'm going to ask somebody, maybe in our audience, who has some working knowledge of our next induction.
I wasn't privileged enough to see him on his first go-round, but in the 80s, late 80s, I lived in New Orleans, and so I got to see him and the assistant at the moment, but he rocked. I mean, he really did. He was hilarious. He was one of the originals. My good friend Crystal, who you guys know, Crystal Wheelery, loved him. He actually made a film, you know, one of the few that made a film. And had some, novelty records and stuff.
Mr. Lobo has a, I don't want to steal any thunder.
No, man.
Dr. Morgus, he did the first film about a horror host called The Wacky World of Dr. Morgus. Dr. Morgus is a frequent guest on the Coast to Coast AM show. I wouldn't have been on, I was on George Norrie's show, Coast to Coast AM, as a horror host expert, only because when I talked to the producer and I mentioned Morgus, she went nuts. Oh, you can talk about Dr. Morgus? Oh yeah, we'll get you on Friday night. George Norrie told the story about he's always creating inventions, and in the context of the movie, he would be attempting something that had never been done by science before. So he would be trying to turn a man into a mermaid, or trying to do something, and he would play it so straight. They'd go to a movie and he'd be doing surgery on somebody when he'd come back. And it would always go wrong. And somehow he kept that straightness of he's really doing science in the old ice house. And so George Norrie tells this story because he's friends with Dr. Morgus. That he comes up and, okay, I got this invention. It's a force field. It's 100% real. It's a force field. So what I want you to do right now is to punch me right in the face. As hard as you can, right in the face. And George Norrie's like, no, man, I'm not going to punch you. No, I've invented a force field. I want you to punch me as hard as you can. So George Norrie hits him in the face as hard as he can, with blood and teeth everywhere, and it, that was it. I guess the experiment failed or whatever, but that's the kind of commitment he had to his character, and that's why you have a guy who's a host of a coast-to-coast national radio show that has 4.5 million listeners turn into a 10-year-old boy every time he talks.
Without further ado, Dr. Morgus. Sidney Noel Rideau, I believe. Rideau sounds very Cajun. Thank you.
Number 6.
Come here, get the hell out of here.
Wow. First of all, I want to thank Jason for inviting us to be a part of this. Very, very cool of you. Everyone's having a good weekend, yeah? Our next inductee is a horror host from Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He was the host of The Dungeon, and besides hosting horror movies, he also hosted sci-fi movies, correct? He started his career as a announcer for the Toledo Mudhens baseball team. And his name is M.T. Graves. He had his show The Dungeon. Later on, he had a show called Other Worlds where he was Empty Space. And then came back again and was doing Empty Graves Presents. Unfortunately and sadly, he passed away in 07. So his plaque will be at the Horror Host Hall of Fame and Rivers. So,
Fantastic. Number 7. Lucky number 7.
Yeah.
Leave the guy alone.
Sit down.
Who was at the roast here today? Yeah, that was the Make-A-Wish Foundation for horror hosts. Sometimes, I hope you laughed because, you made a very, lot of untalented people very happy. I think almost you'd be more apt to introduce this next person than I am.
Too late.
I mean, I don't feel like I'm really worthy to introduce this person. I don't really feel. I mean, my exposure to this person is very current, and he's very current. He is really a giant in this industry who is still making a show in his own dungeon in his basement with his lovely wife. This is the first horror host of the internet. And the last horror host, he was on from 73 to 87 in Washington, D.C., where he is a legend. Synonymous with horror host stuff. He's the guy you grew up with. He's Sammy Terry, he's Bob Wilkins, he's all those guys. He's your horror host. He's the guy who talks to you like Mr. Rogers. And, you don't have that guy anymore. People on the news don't talk to you, they read to you. A horror host is a companion, a friend. Kentucky, I promised myself like So we present this dollar store frame. This cheap bastard with the logo that sucks and we haven't figured it out. We present he's doing it because he loves it. There's a lot of talk about the shock theater package and Zachary and Vampira and that generation. And there's really never been much talk about the creature feature package. And they were the same movies that this man, Count Gordeval, was bringing to the people of Washington, D.C. And so he is the man. He is all of us. He is the horror host. And I think Borloff needs to come up here.
No, he really doesn't.
I can tell he's itching. And I would like Borloff to present Count Gordeval, because whenever this guy's around Count Gordeval, although he does that 10-year-old all the time, it's especially prevalent when he's in the presence of his idol, Count Gordeval. Yeah! And you go back to Count Gord, and I'm going to go pick him up.
That's one of the very first episodes. It was like this tall. Count Gordeval. The man, the vampire, the TV host, the breakfast cereal, the webmaster, and now the artwork. Horror Host Hall of Fame. Right. You were right about the frame. I'm never short for words. Okay, I'll come up with something. Actually, it's very, it's. Oh no, I'm not going to do that. It'll run the makeup. Hearing the names of Marvin, who I grew up with, sneaking up on Saturday nights to watch Shock Theater in Chicago on WBKV. Hearing the names of M.T. Graves, who I ripped his name right off a piece of film and used it in Paducah for 18 months. I didn't know that it was an M.T. Graves. I just saw it on a piece of film. I said, that's a cool name. Okay, let's go with it. But fortunately, and then you know, we heard about other horror hosts around the country, but one of the problems in the generation that I grew up with is we couldn't reach out to them because there was no way to see them. 2-inch tape was just too expensive to ship around the country. So actually, in all the years I was on 20 in Washington, I only met one horror host, and that was the late Dr. Shock out of Philadelphia. He came up and he said, "Hey, what's happening?" I said, "Let's go lunch." Okay, we did. But it was really cool. I thank you all very much. I thank the other horror hosts. Yeah, you're right. You don't make any money off of this thing. Boy, don't you make any money. But if someone can figure out a way, talk to me. No, I'm honored. And also, I have to say one thing, and we'll talk about this later because we're going to, you know, do a deal with Zach here. He is one of the first generation horror hosts, and I got my lifelong dream of actually getting to meet him a couple weeks ago, as Carlos said, and it was just like, you know, I was 9 years old, not 10. I was 9 years old, and I was having a good time. I mean, so anyway, thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
The Son of Ghoul is next.
Thanks, and it's wonderful to be here at the Lobo Telethon. All right, well, you know, for me, big changes happened in 1963 and 64. I was a little son of a ghoul then. And when I turned on my television set, a lot of things were happening. There was a guy that came on Friday nights with a little beard and mustache on. He showed really bad movies, but he was funny as hell. And he said things and did things. When you were a kid, you thought, wow, man, I'd like to be like that guy when I grow up. I don't know what happened. But, his name was Ernie Anderson, the legendary Goulardi. The little guest that Practically 48 years later, we're still talking about Ernie. He was a big influence in Ohio. You see, everything was changing. Ernie was on TV, Ghilardi was on, the Beatles landed, everything, the whole world was changing, all at the same time. Didn't do nothing to affect me. I don't know. I am happy to be continuing on with Ernie's legacy. I'm in my 25th year. And I never realized that having a horror show on television could attract a large amount of homeless people. Pretty tough. So, I'd like to induct Ernie Ghilardi Anderson into the Horror Host Hall of Fame. And I can only tell you one thing. If Ernie was alive today, it could be here right now. He wouldn't be. And you know why? There's only one reason. And let Ernie tell you himself. Thank you.
Well done, sir.
Hey, everybody. Can you hear me okay? I'm not nearly as good as a speaker as all these other people have been up here, so I'll be a little bit brief. I'm very happy to be here to induct Sir Grace Ghastly for a Lushing setting. For 15 years, from 1966 to 1982 in Detroit, Ohio, parts of Canada, and for a short time in Washington. But there was another host out there that kind of beat him out in Washington. For me, I can't imagine Saturdays without him, or Halloween when he did the specials. And as I got a little older, he introduced me to Soul Train and the Soul Train dancers, and I'll be forever grateful. But yeah, it's like everybody said. I saw Frankenstein the first time there, and Dracula, and all the classics, and sometimes Godzilla. And yeah, I just wouldn't be here without him. So I just want to say thank you to him, and unfortunately he's not with us, so this will be going to Ripley's. That's about it. Thank you.
Darkest Jack.
Thank you very much. And it is my dishonor to induct the next person. Now, this isn't someone I grew up with, as the other wonderful hosts before me, but it is an honor. And wow, what an incredible, amazing, jaw-dropping talent this gentleman was, and is. He created a character that was the Barney Fife of horror hosting. He brought the country to horror hosting, and I can only be talking about the Bowman body. Bill Bowman. An absolutely amazing gentleman, and I wish I could see more. There is a project that I discovered. They're working on a documentary about Bowman. You can research that more online and support them, because I for one, I don't know about you ghouls out there, but I know I would really like to see this happen. So once again, let's hear it for Bill Bowman.
Now, I am glad to say that Bill Bowman is still among us. So his award will find its way to him. Who do we have left? Oh, yes. The good Count Gregula. And the Countess, the lovely Countess.
Hello there.
The time has come for scary things, like monsters, ghosts, and vampire things,
With horrible movies all drippy and drooly.
and horrible jokes like him, Svengoolie. Greetings, everybody, and today we are honored and pleased to be inducting into this inaugural Horror Host Hall of Fame the true TV legend from our very own Windy City, the original Svengoolie.
Began in September of 1970 through late summer of 1973 on Chicago's very own WFLB TV, when a man named Jerry G. Bishop did voiceovers for a Friday night horror host films on Screaming Yellow Theater.
So Bishop did those voiceovers, and eventually it led to slides of him shown as Svengoolie, but then the actual thing was him being Svengoolie on camera.
Every Svengoolie show began with a guest celebrity coffin opener, and then during the host segments, you could see the original Svengoolie doing parody bits and silly songs. At the end, Svengoolie would lay back in his coffin, recite some crazy poems, and then get belted by those infamous rubber chickens that we all know about.
A running gag throughout the show was the repeated use of the word burn. Jerry G. Bishop Svengoolie paved the way for the rest of us Chicagoland hosts, and we wouldn't have it any other way. We like him, and we sure do get it. That's right, Svengoolie. Thank you very much.
We are proud to announce that we are inducting today Jerry G. Bishop, the original Svengoolie.
January 1st, 1972, Dr. Creep Shock Theater debuted on Channel 22 in Dayton, Ohio. He not only touched my life, and as you can see, many ways, kind of scary. He touched so many people's lives. He went on to host Clubhouse 22, the afternoon kids show, where he showed us Ultraman, Speed Racer. He went on to not only host Clubhouse 22, Shock Theater, the new Shock Theater. He touched so many people's lives in so many ways. Anybody who knew him loved the man. He loved people deeply. His work with the Muscular Dystrophy Association and his own Project Smiles, where he brought Christmas to thousands of families in the Dayton, Ohio area, that deserves applause. Now, I remember when Barry, he thought in the 90s there that nobody remembered him. And he went to a Cinema Wasteland convention, his first convention he went to, and realized how many people he has touched outside his own area, but around the world. He realized how many people recognized him and knew Dr. Creep, and how many people he's influenced to be horror hosts, and how many people that love horror hosts, how many people he influenced to love horror films. It enlightened him. It brought him back to life. Really, it was the thing that makes me cry. When he brought the love of my life on my show. Brought the spirit on my show. Barry Hobart, a wonderful man. He's here with us right now, my friends. He is.
welcome Dr. Creek into the Horror House Hall of Fame.
Son of Ghoul, real quick. Yes.
One more thing, folks. I want you to know that Horror Host is a special breed of people. You should all be proud of yourselves for what you do. And I want to consider you all my friends. Because we're all very special. I want you all to remember this. Friends may come, and friends may go. And friends may peter out, you know. But we'll be friends through thick and thin. Peter out or peter in.
Accepting on behalf, I can really talk. Rick Martin.
Well, not only me, but also Matt Brassfield and Andy Kopp. Dr. Creek touched us all in a variety of different ways.
That dirty old bastard.
He would love you for saying that. When I was a kid growing up, the big things that we watched on TV were Speed Racer, Ultraman, Dark Shadows, and then Clubhouse 22 with Dr. Creek. Later, as I got older, I could stay up later and watch Shock Theater at night and get introduced to Hammer Films, the Universal series of movies, Roger Corman films, and all that great stuff. Wow, this is rough. I didn't know when I was a kid watching Dr. Creek on TV that in 1987, he and I would meet up and become fast friends. And then in 1990, we started a company together, and we actually managed to reclaim the Shock Theater Dr. Creek rights that a Dayton, Ohio TV station claimed they owed. But we worked it out, and we got the rights back from Barry. And Dr. Creek back in the old days of VHS, I said, Barry, we got to put out a videotape of your show. Because mysteriously, all these 3/4-inch tapes of your TV show have disappeared from the television station and ended up in our hands. Let's do something with this. And I can remember, like Bob was talking about, Barry saying, "Nobody remembers me," and I'm like, "Yeah, bullshit, Barry." A lot of people remember you. We put out the Best of Shock Theater Volume 1 VHS tape. The editing is sloppy, but it was fun. It was a fun project. And that kind of got Barry back into the spirit of being Dr. Creek again. And over the years, you guys have meant to him, all of the horror show hosts who have appreciated him and who have met with him at conventions. You guys were like his extended family, so you guys were also the part of keeping him alive as long as he was, and I want to thank you all for it.
Yeah. All right, that was the 13th Horror Host, the full class, the inaugural class of the Horror Host Hall of Fame kickoff, and it's fitting that Barry is number 13. I will say though, yes, please. I will say though, that every year we will also be inducting 2 behind-the-scenes awards. The Horror Host is, but there's so much that's behind the Horror Host that has to happen to make all this craziness happen. And there are 2 very important things. One is a production staff of writers and producers and camera people, and the other thing is the movies. So every year we'll be inducting 2 behind the scenes. One will be a film or something thereof, and something that is a production level behind a Horror Host. So this year we proudly will be inducting George Romero's Night of the Living Dead into the Horror Host Hall of Fame. And I was in talks with George's manager is here this weekend. George Romero will be receiving this award. And also, one of the writers behind one of our favorite horror hosts, one of the writers behind Ernie Anderson, a man who has gone on to be an amazing man himself. but started with this crazy comedy that almost got he and Ernie fired a couple of times from the television station. I think it may actually have gotten them fired at some point.
Jim Conway's here?
I actually received an email from Tim Conway. He's been notified that he is also being inducted into the Horror Host Hall of Fame for the Behind the Scenes Award. Tim is very, very proud to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, and he will also be receiving his award. So, now, to wrap this up, this has gone a little longer than I'd expected, but that's okay. This was a magical moment. I do want to say that concerning the logo, here soon we'll be launching the website horrorhosthallofFame.com. As part of that website, two things will be happening right off the bat. One is going to be the nomination form. Your induction committee, that was myself, was Chris, was George Chastain, was Nathan Hanneman from Horror Hound. Arduous. How many emails went back and forth between us? It was
so many.
Too many to number. We fought this out and argued, and we came down to a consensus of the 13 hosts and the 2 behind the scenes. But from here on out, your nominations will come from you. On the website, there will be a page to nominate your horror host that you think needs to be inducted. Give us the reasons why. That'll come to us. The induction committee will discuss, and that's from here on out how that will happen. Listen, thank you all very much, very much. Please, don't go anywhere just yet. Okay, go ahead and clap now.
A big thanks goes out to you. I'd like to thank everyone, all the horror hosts we met there. They were all wonderful, great people. Anyway, well, maybe see you next year. Well, we'll see. Well, who knows? So until that time, well, good night, my friends. On the floor there. Count Sim, a big thanks goes out to you. I'd like to thank everyone, all the horror hosts we met there. They were all wonderful, great people. Anyway, well, maybe see you next year. Well, we'll see. Well, who knows? So until that time, well, good night, my friends.